so COVID hit us in a few different waves. Initially, we were just based in our house. New Beacon House is where we live. It's an old vicarage. It was only being rented out privately, and we put a proposal together, and we just paid for ourselves initially, and then eventually the Church of England and have supported what we're doing there. But you've got alpacas and all kinds of things that we walk down the street with, and we've got a yurt in the front garden. So it was crazy, and we were contacting hundreds of people a week coming through our house. And so when COVID hit, we just kind of opened up the backyard. And so lots of people were coming there, and we would go and visit people with food that were isolated. There are two things kind of happened in COVID. One is we were able to get this building, and then the police basically said, look, we've got so many of these folks who are stuck in these HMOs. They can't really stay in the house all day. Could we send them down to you? And so we kind of got, we were a designated kind of space. It's a big building.
Yeah, that's good then.
And so we've been helping in all kinds of ways, really. Initially with food and just advocacy and helping people who are losing their benefits and all kinds of stuff. But it's built, and so when so now really for most of last year and this it's been full on every day now. Angie's been she's very funny. You should have Angie on. Angie's just had a book released, actually. It's called Missionary, Not Just a Position, is the name of the book.
That's a great title.
And she works a lot with kind of sex workers here in the area.
I bet that's colourful.
And she's been getting them all kind of vaccinated, because a lot of people are anti-vaxxers, not because they don't believe in them getting vaxxed. Actually, it's just too difficult, too hard. So she pays them £5, and they get vaccinated.
Wow.
So she took some of the ladies, and £5 for a different kind of. It's only £5 for a hand job, but we got. Anyway, so we've been helping all kinds of ways with police, with health services. But people have been in survival mode and been in survival mode a long time. So having somewhere safe to come to, somewhere that's big and open, has been really important for a lot of people. And of course, we've visited a lot of people during that time.
And one thing that I noticed as we got back to normal is crime has in certain areas is gone off the charts, which you can understand. Obviously, young people have got together. The streets are empty. The police are busy, or however you want to, whatever you want to say about the policing. How have you've worked with people in prisons before? We spoke about James. How are you finding that? Is that a real difficult problem? Because the way you talk, you've got enough on your plate without, you're doing all this for the community, and then you've got the other side of it, which is the crime side of it. How's that working out?
Yeah, the crime side of it got really complicated for us. So we're living in a kind of community house called New Beacon House, and we had just teenagers who were just bored going, and they were breaking into our house, trying to steal stuff while we're upstairs. The rooms are upstairs, and downstairs is kind of where the community kind of are, but they were breaking in, stole my computer, all that kind of stuff. Stole a car, one of our friends' cars as well. And then you get people who are really frustrated, they're getting drunk and really just out of control, really, because boredom and the cycle. So crime, crime happens, doesn't it, when things are not working for you. You don't commit a crime if everything's working for you. So when lots of things are not working for you, you're more, if your housing doesn't work, if you've not got good, meaningful things to do, if you're, if you've not got good, positive relationships in your life. So I see crime really as an end product of a whole lot of things not working.
Yeah.
There's very few guys in prison, like the prison here at Winson Green. It's a massive prison. It's an old Victorian prison. You lock a couple of guys up in a cell together, but I think something like 80% of the guys have grown up in care homes, and huge percentage have mental health problems. Huge percentage have addiction problems, and locking them up is kind of, we used to think with addiction, for example, that it was just the drug was so good. That's why people take them.
Yeah.
And there was kind of research of a rat put in a cage, and there was heroin in one thing, water in the other, and the rat would always kill itself on the heroin. But then someone said, well, that's in a rat in a cage. It's pretty awful. What about if we made Rat Park? The rat had as much sex as they wanted. They could go around. They had games and things to do. They had a great time. Lots of food, lots of fun. And you put heroin in there, and you put water in there, and they never took the heroin. It wasn't the drug that was the issue. It was the cage. It was the kind of living conditions that people were in. And so it's not a surprise to me that crime goes up when people have been locked up and end up being locked up again. It's a lack of connection that kills people.
Do you think the system, I mean, I've spoke to quite a few people that have been in prison in America, and they say the lack of support is terrible over there, where you come out, you're thrown in this little room with a mattress, you have to walk every day miles and miles to the job, and then a friend of yours phones up and says, do you want to do this crime? What, instantly you're going to do that. Do you think the support over here is still not good enough?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of our guys here, his name is Mark. He was in prison in Winson Green, and we did what he said when he got out. He got a plastic bag with his stuff in it. It was HMP Birmingham. He had to catch a bus to his probation officer. No one wanted to sit next to him. I mean, he'd done his time. There was kind of a lack of dignity. So one of his we have a Change Makers Emerging Leaders programs, and people pitch their idea for change at the end. And his idea for change was dignity bags, he calls them. Yeah. That when you leave prison, you get a bag with toiletry in it. You can put your stuff in it. No one knows where you've been. Yeah. When you go to probation, it's just a normal. So even basic things, you're stripped of dignity all the way through the process. And as I say, I used to work in resettling people as a community chaplain. So I'd be in the prison, but also meet them on the day of their release, try to get them to probation, try to get them to their housing. But honestly, 90% of guys would not go to adequate housing, would not have meaningful things to do, and would not have healthy relationships. And either one of those things means that you'd reoffend. But most of these guys would have not have the three, and that trifecta is a killer, and it just happens again and again and again and again.
It's a shame, and I bet that's heartbreaking for you when you because the amount of work you can put in and time it can take on those individuals, and then when it fails compared to what you're doing at the minute with the community and things like that. It must be real heartbreaking when it fails, but I suppose you can only do what you can do.
Yeah, and that resilience is kind of part of being based and placed in a local community. I think if all I did was the prison work, I don't know I could do that. I know there are chaplains who can, and I've got a friend of mine, Ronnie, who was the head of chaplaincy at Winson Green. He's a character, Glaswegian. It's very funny. A very dark sense of humour, my goodness. But just to survive, I mean, you are putting human beings in cages. Essentially, that's the solution for these guys that the society says, and I just don't think that's a good enough solution in the 21st century. It's not doing anybody any good.
And it's like I said earlier as well, some of those people are the most talented and skillful people. It's just giving them that direction, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Where do you see? So you've got these seed beds at the minute. Where do you see this going in the future, Ash?
Yeah, I'm really excited. So seed beds were about growing leaders and communities in the fullness of life. Our biggest program has been our Emerging Leaders program called Change Makers. local communities identify talented young leaders, and they invite them. They get nominated on the program. We invite them on, and they come with an idea for change. And they've started enterprises and campaigns. And so Mark, got the Dignity Bag project up and going. So they're solving community problems from within. And we roll that into Scotland next month, which I'm really excited about. We're also working with we would run master's programs and PhD programs with the Nazarene Theological College as well. So we've got folks who come from our neighbourhoods are now at researching and learning at a really high level, and that's building their capacity for change as well. We're also working in Burma. So Myanmar, you may know, Myanmar has had a coup last year in February, so just over 12 months ago. And we worked with the democratic forces there, and they've asked whether we would do what we do for change makers, but work with about 350,000 refugees and internally displaced people for income generation. And so, we're building a coalition at the moment and hoping that in April we'll start some of it online initially with a pilot group, and that we'll go to refugee camps in July and August, and they'll pitch their ideas for change to panels and get resources to start their businesses and campaigns. And we've got media, filmmakers as well, and a few others who are helping and build and then so there's lots of ideas that we kind of
how have you got enough hours in the day, Ash?
Yeah, it does feel like that sometimes, but there is something about doing something that you love and you're passionate, you feel like is meaningful, that gives you energy. The stuff that drives me mad is the bureaucracies and the
paperwork.
Yeah, I can do, an hour of that feels like a month of work, do something you love with young emerging leaders and help their dreams come true. Man, you can do that for
And it's good what you say there, because I always say that to a lot of people, try and do something you're passionate about or that gives you a purpose, which I think goes back to the people that have got do crime or whatever. They haven't got a purpose, and once you lose that, there's nothing worse. When you are passionate and you've got a purpose, wow, you can't get any better than that, can you?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we do with Changemakers is get them to a personal mission statement. What are you dissatisfied in the world about? What are your passions? And what gifts do you have to try and make a difference in those two things? And it is amazing what people can come up with. So mine really is, so the kind, I like connecting people, I like developing people, like, releasing people, and particularly urban people and places. My PhD was in that whole area. And it's amazing, I think, how complicated urban areas are, but how full of potential they are. And if we can release urban people and places, the world will be a different place. I think for me, the dream is shalom. And so I come from a Christian background, so this idea of shalom is a biblical idea of God, people, and place being in harmony together. And I love that. And when people have a sense of that, of harmony with nature in the place and with other people, that's a taste of heaven. And that's what when I see that stuff happen, it gives me energy. It doesn't sink me.
Yeah.
And so I can do that. I can just keep doing that. But there are a whole lot of things I'm not good at. And when I get stuck doing those things, they just drain me. And,
yeah, I know that feeling.
Burnt stick.
So if people do want to get in touch or look what you're up to, then Ash, it's basically the website seedbedsdog.org.
Seedbeds.org. Yeah.
And everything scans from all your projects and everything are all on there, aren't they? And they all come from there.
Yeah, lots of those things are there. I mean, it's worth saying that, so Seedbeds is our kind of leadership development, community capacity building work. But we do have the New Biggin Community Trust, which my wife leads, and that's all the work here in Winson Green. And then we have a local church. I'm a minister of that, and that's Lodge Road Community Church. So those three things kind of work together. And the real focus on Winson Green, and I do as part of the church, But then, yeah, these kind of leadership development programs where we work with people across the country and across the world, actually.
Yeah. Do you actually feel...
I go to the Ukraine in April.
Oh, my God.
So,
that will be interesting. Keep an eye on the news. Do you feel like you're quite rooted there now, do you think, or do you think you'll move on, or do you think you'll stay there?
No. That was our sense of call, actually, that we grounded and rooted in Winston Green and then connected for leadership development around the world. And yeah, I'd say we've been here just over 7 years. I don't want to move again. And a lot of things you put in process now, things like schools and housing, and we've got a really great setup here in this church. You don't want to just start all over again. I'm getting too old for that.
I can't believe that. It's quite funny, isn't it? When you originally were in Melbourne, I bet you never thought, I wonder where I'll end up. Winston Green in Birmingham, in the UK. And I always ask my guests for a bit of advice. It might be the best bit of advice you've ever been given, Ash, or that you give people. Have you got something you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, Margaret Mead once said, she said, an anthropologist, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And that for me kind of encapsulates what we try and do. It's thoughtful, committed people. My goodness, how far they can go and what change they can see happen. We underestimate it. We certainly underestimate what there's another saying that's kind of connected with that. We can overestimate what we can do in a year, but we can often underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And I think that's true in a neighbourhood like Winston Green. You know, the next 10, 15, 20 years, it will be amazing what's possible here. But what happens this year, we've just got to, it's inch by inch.